Well, I've done a lot of things in the ministry here, but I've always considered my ministry a people ministry, working with people. It's been a blessing. I remember being with a man when the doctor told him his wife was at the door of death. She had no chance for survival, and we prayed together, and she lived 25 years. About 1980, a group of senior adults went to our pastor and said, we'd like to be more organized and do more senior adult activities, and what can you do for us? And nobody knew how to organize a senior adult ministry, but the pastor said, Clarence, see what you can do. So we enlisted Ralph Thacker to begin that ministry. He knew nothing about it either, but he was certainly a dedicated man to it. He would call other churches, we'd visit other churches, we visited the Sunday school board, we went to camps, we spent hours, we spent days together, and he developed one of the most comprehensive senior adult programs you could find. I remember also one night sitting with one of our members. He was vice president of Texas Gas, sitting on the porch of an unsaved, unemployed man, and watched Jim lead that man to Christ. There are many other incidents like that, but when you work closely with people in God's ministry and doing things like that and seeing God work, it draws you closer together. There's nothing that draws people closer together than working in God's ministry. I've been blessed by being a part of that. Not everything in the church has been unanimous. We've had some good discussions, and maybe that's good. It gives us more time to pray. It gives us more time to think. But God has led us to have a unified church, and it's been a joy to serve with the people through these years in this church. What about you, Vivien?
Well, I'm going to kind of turn the tables a little bit and tell how the people have ministered to us. We have loved the people of First Baptist. They have been so kind and gracious and good to us, starting from a little remark that was made to Clarence after about 2 or 3 months that we had been here. This lady, I thought she was pretty elderly. She probably wasn't as old as I am now. But anyway, she was an active person, led a big Sunday school class, and she came up to Clarence and said, young man, I like you so far. She never did go back to him and say, young man, I don't like you anymore, so she would have. But the people were good to us. They accepted us and taught us a lot, and they were so wonderful to me, well, to him too, of course, but Clarence had had 2 major heart surgeries, 3 heart attacks, carotid artery surgery. I don't know how he's sitting here, but he is. God is blessed. The people ministered to us, of course, with prayer, but with everything, with cards, letters. They went and got him and me when he got able to come home from out-of-town hospitals. They brought food. It just supported us totally. One example of support in a different vein, it was the time that Dr. Nelson had an extended leave because of sickness. He was out several months, and things were hectic, and that was the time that we were in a building, a remodeling program. I think we were without a staff meeting, and it was just a bad time for Clarence. We may not have been without a staff member there. But anyway, it was a hard time. And a couple in our church went to Clarence and said, could we take the responsibility of prayer meeting? That was a great big load off of his shoulder, and they did.
Tremendously. I don't have any statistics on this, but I believe a high percentage of those who become believers in Christ come through our Sunday school. And others who join the church come through Sunday school. Let me tell you about 2 groups. the Maverick class. I'm sure you expected me to say something about them. I've taught them for 20 years. It's a group of old men. 2 years ago, the average age of that class was 76, even though we have some 50 and 60-year-old members in there. That I call them our kiddie corps, but we're a group of old men. And we have 4 men over 90. 3 of them attend every Sunday. The other one is unable to attend. Come October, we'll have 4 more over 90, and 3 of those attend regularly. The other one is resident in a nursing home. Not many people come to faith in Christ when you get that old. But through the years, we've had 8 members of that class being baptized, most of them new believers. And that's something that we look back on with some degree of pride. I remember the daughter of one of our members at his funeral said, "I want you to thank the Maverick class. My father wouldn't be in heaven if it weren't for that Sunday school class." About 20 years ago, when I had retired, the average attendance of the class was 12 or 15 per Sunday, and Jack Allison and I got a list of the older men of the church who were not going to Sunday school, and we visited most of them. We begged them, we cajoled them, we threatened them, we promised them anything to get them in Sunday school. Attendance went up to about 20. I don't do as much enlistment visitation now as I used to, but the class has grown to attendance of 35 or 40 every Sunday. I know that's too big, Wes, but that's the way it is. And it's not because of anything that I have done as a leader. The men have taken responsibility for bringing other people in. I found a list of the members of the class in 1910, and I looked through that list and realized that in those 4 years, 18 members of the class had died. And you would think that the enrollment of the class had gone down, but it went down 1 person, because our members had gone out and enlisted new people for the class. In different ways. A member might bring a friend, a co-worker. So one member sat near a man in worship service, 8:30 worship service, and noticed that he didn't go to Sunday school any Sunday. Brought him to Sunday school. He's become an active member of the class. And then there was one situation where a member's wife's co-worker's husband was not going to church, not a member of any church, not a member of our church anyway. And they enlisted him. He's become a very, very strong supporter of our Sunday school. Still not a member of the church, but a very strong supporter of the Sunday school. I think back of some of the things that have been said to me at the funeral of one of our members. His widow said, "I want you to thank the class for what it meant to my husband. He was never interested in reading the Bible, never read the Bible, but the last 5 years of his life, he never went to bed without reading his Bible." And then another lady called me one day and said, "What have you been teaching in Sunday school?" And my defense antennas kind of go up when somebody says something like that. And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, my husband has never been so good to me." And I asked him why, and he said, "We talked about that in Sunday school." I don't remember talking about it, but somehow he caught that, and it's good teaching. Enough about the Maverick class, but it impacted a number of people. Let me tell you about some young adults. In 1970, we asked a man named Jim Elkins to lead a Sunday school department, ages 25 to 33, and we were, at that time, tried to be very strict about the age grading, and so the ages of the class were 25 to 33. It was a small department when he started. He was dedicated, creative, insisted on good teachers. We had to keep him from robbing other classes of getting some of the best teachers, but we had great teachers there. He did some of the craziest socials you ever thought. Joe Nelson was a teacher in that, and we had to promise her every year that she wouldn't have to be in one of his skits if she would teach the Sunday school class. But the key was visitation. Every Thursday night, he and Eddie James, his assistant, would go out visiting prospects. They would get other members of the department to go as well. And there was consistent growth in the department. The department grew as there were needs and leadership in other areas, children's areas, youth areas. Members of that department would go out and serve in other parts of Sunday school. When a member got to be 34 years old, went on to the next department, most of the time anyway, and most of the time reluctantly they went, but they went. And so the department had furnished in other areas of the church with members and leaders. And the day that Jim left, he moved to Georgia. He had 100 people in attendance in that Sunday school department. And not only was it good for the department, but many of the current leaders of that church, of our church, joined the church at that time through that department. So that's impacted a lot of people in our church. One couple I remember joined the church, young couple. Sunday school director and I went to visit him the following week, and he said, I joined the church and I joined Sunday school, but don't expect me to do anything. I'm just starting in business, and I'm not going to have time to do anything. Well, since then, he's been director of an adult Sunday school department. He was for several years director of the high school department. He's served on numerous committees, many times as chairman. Been an active leader in the church. His wife been just as active as he is, and kind of like that kind of inactivity, not going to be involved. But Sunday school has impacted people in over and over and over again. Grateful for that. Obviously, every person who comes to faith in Christ has a transformation inside, changed from death to life. We know that. Oftentimes that also results, if needed, in an outward change as well. I've seen a man quit drinking, seen a man who had almost uncontrollable temper become a very moderate, pleasant person. I remember one man that his wife was a member of our church. He was not, did not attend, was not interested. Numerous people visited him to witness to him, always polite, kind of withdrawn. And we were just about ready to give up on him, but when he was 69 years old, he gave his heart to Christ. Whole personality changed. He became an outgoing, dedicated, optimistic, happy member of First Baptist Church and the Maverick class as well. So there have been transformations like that. I remember one night a Sunday school teacher called me and said, that's a bad time to call me, incidentally, but I was in bed. It was late at night. He had been related to some family through a child or a young person in his Sunday school class, and he said, the family in need, would you go with me to talk to them? So we did, and found a group of people, been drinking, rowdy, cursing, and we got them together and we talked to them about what God could do in changing lives and how he could help. And there was one man set off to the side, and he kind of made fun of us. He ridiculed the fact that God could or would change anybody's life. Well, we left there with the situation was fairly calm. Years later, I was visiting in the hospital, and I noticed a group of people in a waiting area, obviously going through some type of trauma, stress. And I stopped and asked if there's anything I could do, and there's a young man said, no, I think I got everything under control. And as I was leaving, he said, you don't remember me, do you? And I said, no, I got a clue who you are. He said, well, one night you came to a friend's house and talked to us about Christ, and I'm afraid I made fun of you. Talked about what God could and couldn't do, and I didn't have a clue, he said. Well, since then, I've become a Christian. That had an impact on me, though you may not have known it at that night. And I've become a lay preacher now. Now that's transformation. And we've seen it happen over and over and over again.